to turn it over to Jen Handley. Jen and her husband Bob pastor Calvary Church in Holden, Massachusetts. Jen and Bob took over, or Bob and Jen took over the church, was it 5 years ago already, Jen? Something like that?
I think it's
Uh,
9.
From, from her dad, Joe Ford. Jen's been a part of the church since she was as a very young child, obviously. And so we just want to turn it over to her. She's going to speak on innovation in small groups, or innovative small groups, I think is the proper title. Yeah, innovative small groups. So Jen, go ahead, take your full time and unpack it for us today.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And just as we kind of switch here, really, it's just a continuation of everything Daniel was saying so wonderfully. Just two things that he said stood out to me: to know God, and that we become catalysts for a life-changing movement, and that we're still part of that was happening so long ago. And I just really want to dig into that a little bit more today. And I'm just going to start under the idea, and it'll run through that really there's incredible superpowers that we have. And it's that we are unique individuals that God has created with strengths, weaknesses, and abilities. And we serve a unique group of people. And I find even throughout scripture, when those things combine, it's like guaranteed fruit. Not that it won't be without difficulty, not that there's not trials and struggles and things that happen, but there's something powerful when we use the things he's given us and we see the uniqueness of the group that we've been called to minister to. Just throughout my time teaching public school, I taught for over a decade in different city schools in our area. I noticed that very often when a program worked well in one school, they would try to take that program and like implement it all these other places. It's like fast moving, the curriculum, the classroom management, the behavioral stuff. There's a lot of money to be made in these things as well. And they'd take these programs and they would just, hey, this worked in Harlem, or this worked in Austin, or this worked in Los Angeles. Let's try this here. Often we would implement these strategies and they were successful elsewhere. And we'd find that as we went to roll out these programs that were so specific, so exact, that we would run into glitches. And we'd find it would lead as teachers to frustration when you hear how successful something was and you're given that and you're told to now do this, and you find it's just not working, or it just needed different approaches. And we'd often find ourselves like, why didn't it work here? All these kids were reading with this program in southern Texas, and now we have that program and we're trying, and it's not working. Why is that? For example, there's this program called the Harlem Children's Zone, and it's this incredibly successful program that was built in Harlem. And it took this comprehensive cradle to career look at the students' education, and they've got families involved and children involved, and it was this incredible program. But they found it's been very hard to duplicate elsewhere, to take the exact plan, to take it and try to put it somewhere else. It was this beautiful homegrown and heart-grown approach to who they were called to serve. The strengths of the leader had met the need and the love for these students, and it had been just dynamic. But what we found is it was hard to just transfer it anywhere. To think that a program exactly can be lifted and implemented elsewhere without editing or without tweaking was faulty for us in the public school system. While the ideas of the program and values or the curriculum, have a lot to teach us and a lot to show us, it cannot be lifted and plopped down anywhere and magically produce the same results. It's a different group of teachers, it's a different group of students. And so that's what's really on my heart this morning, talking about with the goal of we want people to know God, like Daniel said. You want to be catalysts of life-changing movements, like he said. You as a small group leader, myself as a small group leader, we are unique individuals. And with that uniqueness, we lead unique groups of people. If I'm leading Hearing God 40 Ways, or is it 400 Ways? No, it's 40 Ways, by Larry Kreider in Worcester, Mass, with a group of 18 to 30-year-old young adults. It should look and sound different than a group of 40 plus women going through the same book in a different community. Even within one region, we find this here for us. In one region of one state in America, there are cultures and subcultures there that exist. And we have this gift of being called specifically to these areas and these incredibly unique groups of people. So we have two incredible advantages. We're going to call them our superpowers. Um, when I was a kid, there was this show called Captain Planet. It was horrible acting and it was horrible editing, but it stuck in my head because when all these people's power combined, it was this dynamic thing. I don't recommend the show, but it will stick in your head, and that's what I wanted to go with. We're going to call these our superpowers this morning, and the sheets that I had available kind of dig into this a little bit for almost like a little mini workshop on the other side. You have unique perspectives and abilities. You have unique strengths, even weaknesses. You are leading and shepherding a unique group of people. And I just want to share a couple stories to give some context, if that's okay. And I'm just going to put this up for everyone. This is just a couple glimpses of some people that I want to share with you. I'm not sure if it's going to work. Let's see. Here we go. These are just some people from our local community that I wanted to share with. Is that showing, Ron?
No, it's not. If you click on share,
Yeah, I did. I'm not sure why, but it's okay. I'll try one more time.
yeah, try one more time.
Okay. Okay. I'm just running into a couple of little issues, but okay. I'll try one more time, everyone. I'm so sorry.
All right.
Um, all right.
There you go.
You
You
should,
got it.
okay. You should see their faces here in a minute. My apologies, everybody. Can you see those four faces, Ron?
Loading. Yep, there they are.
Okay, there they are. They're so beautiful. In the top corner, you see David. He's the hip guy in the corner, in case you're wondering. David is a semi-professional soccer player. He's a motivator and he's an encourager. David is going to get the content and the curriculum for our summer program from me. But the beauty of it is that David is going to deliver that content in a way that taps into his God-givenness. We're going to call that our new word today. He will be teaching content while running soccer clinics. Sports are a big deal to David, clearly, and to a lot of young men and women in the community in which he leads. David is going to be more effective by embracing this part of who he is with these kids he's serving. The content is there, but David is going to take that and really bring it to life because of his gifts and strengths and the interest and the joy of the people he's teaching. Haley is our redhead in the corner. She's eccentric and she's creative. You can almost just tell. She wears sweaters with ducks on them, so that helps you get to know Haley really quick. She's a writer. She loves journaling, but she also loves activities that practice hearing the voice of God. So Haley teaches how to hear God incorporating journaling. If I were to hand Haley a copy of Larry Kreider's Hearing God book, I guarantee you she would utilize journaling sessions. And she would be teaching a group that really embraces creativity and expression, her age group, the youth and young adults we find. This would be important to her generation, and she'd have buy-in there. This is Josh at the bottom. He loves to cook. He cooks with love. And when he enters a kitchen, it trembles. He has a heart for men's ministry. He saw a need for a weekly men's Bible study, but felt to provide a weekly meal for the men when they gather. They're going through the book Measure of a Man. Many of the men come appreciate this home cooked meal, and it's created this fellowship and warmth and safe feeling. And it's not something like when Josh isn't there, it's not something that you can just buy a pizza to duplicate. This came from his heart. They had 18 men sitting around a table Wednesday night, and it's the fruit of this heart for who his audience was, and knowing that some of these guys needed someone to cook them a meal. It's beautiful. Finally, there's Jane in the middle. She's so lovely. She has a heart for hospitality. This is a hospitality gift that started with encouraging people to prepare blessing bags. This is extended into hospitality to those in recovery from addiction. She felt led to start a weekly recovery group at her church outside of her ministry at a nearby substance abuse recovery center. Using the Recovery Bible, she's using their curriculum while also leaving room for the 12-step model. But her community is responding to her the fact that Jane loves worship. Jane loves the presence of God. Jane knows who sets the captives free. So she felt led to make sure it was Christ centered and present centered. And I'll just pull that here. Um, as she was, oops, sorry, everyone. As she was teaching, she just felt led to, sorry, Ron, trying to get it back up. She just felt led to take that group in a direction of present centered and Christ centered. Finally, just a couple biblical examples for everybody. We're going to look at just two stories really quick. But the highlights of those pictures are that these are people who are very unique. They serve a unique audience. Those things combining does something dynamic as they teach the word of God, as they practice his presence. Firstly, just Esther. And in chapter 4, verse 12 through 16, these are some really powerful verses in Esther. They're also very popular. But Esther is a beautiful example of God givenness and a heart for the people and knowing and loving the people, and it just becoming dynamic. After expressing her fears to Mordecai, he says to her, "Do not think, Esther, that you're in the king's house. You alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows that you've come to your royal position for just a time as this?" And it's a powerful verse about where we are. It's also a picture, it's very humbling. Listen, like, this is my heart for these people. This is going to happen. You're in this position for such a time as this. If it doesn't happen with you, this is going to happen with someone else. So it really keeps us humble knowing like this is because his heart for his people. At the same time, what a beautiful picture. It resonates with her and she says, "You know what? If I perish, I perish. I'm going to do the will of God here." And her heart and her humility and her teachability and her bravery and her boldness is met with this love for people. And it's really powerful. And we see how God moves in her story. Secondly, is just quickly from Peter's life in Acts chapter 10. Um, just to show the importance of a heart for the audience and caring for the audience. As Peter is getting ready to go forward in his ministry, there's a heart issue that comes up because Peter's being asked to share the good news with a people that he has a heart issue with. God speaks to him through a vision and a dream. And he goes to those people and he just says something really powerful in Acts 10:34. God was dealing with a discrimination and a prejudice in his heart for the very people he was going to be ministered to. And that's just something for us to understand. We can have all the God givenness and gifts and talents in the world, but if that heart for the people isn't there, God's going to need to deal with that in us. And after this dream and this vision, and Peter goes to these people and he ministers, he says in Acts chapter 10, verse 34, "I realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, accepts every nation, but accepts from every nation the one who fears him and does what is right." Peter, with all he knew, needed to deal with his own heart to ready for his audience. And it's just a thought that sometimes we're leading a particular group of people and we're getting all our lesson plans ready, and we need to apply that content here to just purify that delivery. Just a quick story to resonate with that. My dad got saved driving home from softball in a van in Riverside, Rhode Island, driving past the Bible school where he would once teach. While attending that Bible school after he was saved, he was part of an outreach team in the South Bronx. And he was finally asked to preach at an outreach in the South Bronx. And he was so excited and he was getting everything ready. And he had this huge message, and it was about discrimination and it was about prejudice. And God was dealing with him about these things. Um, and he was just so excited to finally give this message and he couldn't wait. And the whole sound system stopped working at this outreach. And none of the outreach was able to go forward because they couldn't get the microphones working. They couldn't get the sound working. He realized that day that that message about discrimination and prejudice and issues in his heart was only for him. And he had done all this preparation for God to stop that day and deal with his heart. He would later go on to lead a multicultural, multi ethnic group of people. God was dealing with, he had all the God givenness, but God needed to deal with that heart for the people. What a beautiful thing. Just a note, as we prepare our studies and meetings, sometimes the content is for us too. Um, we're going to share I'm going to share just a quick activity with all of you. I think that could just respond to some of this. So as we go forward to remember, we have our God-givenness and all these wonderful things in us. We have these unique communities and people we're serving. Those two things combined, they are dynamic. They are dynamic. Remember those faces of those people. I couldn't do what they've done with those groups of people. And that heart that connected has just been so fruitful. One experience I had teaching as well, they would often give us, at our teacher professional days, they'd give us content to teach other teachers. And often this content would come from the district office, and they'd give us this stuff and say, hey, here's this, teach this, do this. And it would be very difficult to stand in front of your peers. And I was teaching English second language students, and the content was on how to help English second language students. But somebody gave me the content, asked me to say these things. So I stood in front of my peer teachers and I had to read from a sheet and show a PowerPoint, and they weren't given the chance to ask, and I wasn't given the chance to share insights. So what could have been this dynamic, teachable, wonderful small group in that professional setting was a little bit controlled and limited and wasn't as dynamic and life-giving, because the what I had to offer as the teacher was put aside, and what they had to offer as the audience was put aside, just to be able to check this box that this content had been delivered. So we want to avoid that, and we want to embrace the whole picture, keeping that Esther and that Peter in mind. And so here's the final three thoughts. Firstly, we lead our group with our end goal in mind. I love the one Daniel said. The goal here is to know God, right? Those big goals. There's also maybe some short term goals that you have that are important to define before you start a new study, a new group, a new short term session that you might be doing. So, what are your goals? Maybe there's big ones like for this generation to rise up and take their place. Um, and then there's these shorter term goals, right? Oh, I want to see the women of Graceway be able to share their testimony in the streets of Worcester. I want to see the men of Calvary have understanding of Bible study methodology. I want to see the 9 to 12-year-olds of whatever city I'm in be able to hear and journal God's voice and sit still for more than 5 minutes. God help us. If you're teaching a small group for kids or youth, good for you. By the way, if you're teaching a small group with kids and youth, what you're doing is important. What you're doing matters. You are not a second rate because you're working with younger people. Jesus gathered young people around him. He called them his disciples, and they changed the world. So please embrace the fact that if your small group is with kids or youth, it is just as important. It is kingdom stuff you are doing. And give yourself a pat on the back, because those kids are crazy, and you know. Three major ideas here I'm going to encourage you to do to take those worksheets if you have them, and I can share it on my screen here at the end. um, Teach, lead, and oversee with our goals in mind. Define those goals. They might change throughout the year, they might change even within 6 months. I want my group to be able to, if a woman at our church does outreach, she leads a group that goes downtown. I want my group to be able to share the gospel. I want my group to be able to minister to the homeless with love and compassion, those types of goals. I want my women's group to do this, my children's group to do this. To understand you have strengths, abilities, quirks, gifts, weaknesses. Keep Peter in our mind always. What a faithful servant of God who was open to his heart being dealt with. Wow, what a picture. Finally, identify the uniqueness, the quirks, and the abilities of your group. I do believe that it's a dynamic combination. I would encourage you to take that planning sheet, think through those three things: the goals, your strengths, your small group's character, their strengths, and to just let God minister to you, give you some innovative ideas, give you some creative ideas. And I hope this is something you can sit with a little and just let God just give you those big creative moments with him. And I'll turn it back to you, Ron.
Great. Jen, do you have that worksheet in front of you? Like, can you
I
present
do.
that?
I can.
Is there any further instructions with that
Sure.
as they look over it?
Sure. Look, I got better at it already. Okay. It says small group superpower plan, just because I really do think they're superpowers. I mean, the stories of those four, that's just four people just diving into what God's shown them. Look at the fruit of that. And I know you have that in your churches, and I know you have that too. And there's more. Just want to, what Daniel said, catalyst of life changing movement. That's what we're doing. So to start, just list your end goals. In teaching, we use this phrase a lot. And as annoying as I found it, it's highly effective. We work backwards, right? We teach with the end in mind. I want this group to be able to, and finish that statement, whether you want to do it 2 times or 4 times. I want this group to be able to open up to a book of the Bible and create a short Bible study. I want this group to be able to um, practice hearing God's voice and journaling his voice. I want this group to be able to use their gifts to minister to the next generation. I want this youth group to be able to read the Bible with confidence or spend time in his presence without being uncomfortable or different things. And then after that, you list your 5 God given abilities, strengths, and interests. And if you're like, I have 15, you can list 15. That's amazing. Um, and if you need to, as I was reading the thing about Peter, if something kind of jumped up in your heart, write that too, because it's good to be aware when there's those little things in our heart towards our audience that need to be dealt with, or our group that need to be dealt with. And then considering your group or potential group. List 5 characteristics of them or traits of them that stand out. Man, it's a multicultural group. When, for example, I look at the youth group at our church, it is a multicultural group. It's a group with a lot of kids in broken homes, unfortunately. Those are things I'm going to take into mind. Not that it changes, like, not that it changes things in a negative way, but I'm going to see that thing in my group and say, I want these kids to be able to know that God wants healthy families. I want these kids to be able to have a picture of what healthy family is like. That might be a really big statement for our youth pastor here. And then you can name your group. This is supposed to be kind of something fun for you. Maybe it's something you don't share. Um, yeah, like my 9 to 12-year-old group, I would call them those that don't sit still. And I wouldn't share that with anyone. It's a little therapeutic moment for me, actually. But looking at the lists on the other page, write any places for creative overlap. What are some traits that could create dynamic fruit when put together with the end goal in mind? Example, in this group, we're going to devote half the time to Bible study, but allow the other half for journaling and then a share out time. If you find you have a group really embracing journaling, really want to practicing like hearing his voice or soaking in his presence. So just those statements like that at the end, I think could be really helpful. And I would suggest revisiting them throughout our groups as we go forward.
Okay, so they can take this if they have it, they can do it for their current group, or they could even do it in planning and strategizing to plan a new group. So Jen, thank you so much. If you can unshare out of that.